the government says that is the gospel truth and we don't need to listen to anybody. But that's not how it works. You must listen to this side and you must listen to that side. And then once you make up your mind, nobody can fault you because they say, hey, I listen to both sides and this is my position on it. But we find that a lot of our people, we tend to like run with the first thing that we hear, and that shouldn't be. But anyway, folks, 3:34, and I see we have two of we are turning it and we have Isaac there. So I have Mr. John Clark join up on the stage. John, big up yourself. Yes, and we have Miss Valerie. Here's Miss Nita Robertson. There you go. All right. Look. Go ahead, John.
Thanks for the invitation to your big show, man. On the big show.
The big show. Yeah, no, my P I sat well. So Miss Valerie Nita Robertson, welcome, ma'am. Welcome to the show.
You're still muted.
Yes, thank you for the invitation. Some of my favorite people are here.
Yes, I haven't seen you in a while. The last time you were here was, I think, maybe a year ago or so. It was a while.
Yes.
Hear that you must share the youth portion with us. Whatever it is that you're drinking, eating, using, whatever, share it with us.
Okay, I've been very busy.
And then we also have Alessandra LaBeach, a member of that fantastic team. Alessandra, welcome. It's the first time, but I can assure you, I believe it won't be the last time. It won't be the last time. So who we waiting? Iqbal, where's Iqbal? I don't see Iqbal at all. I don't see Iqbal. Anyway, he'll join us soon, I'm sure. All right. Look, a big welcome again to all of you. Now, folks, full disclosure, truth be told, two of these four attorneys, they represent the One Jamaica Legal Defense Foundation. I won't tell you the cases. I'll just say that two of them represent the organization, and that's a good thing. Now, let me start out by asking each of you, because this is a program about profile. It's not about cases or politics. It's about you and your struggles and your contributions to the development of the judicial system in Jamaica. The difficulties, the easy part, the struggles, all of these things. So let me start with this ladies first. John, no disrespect. Isaac, no disrespect. But we know Isaac already. I want away.
Let me start. I must say this, Mr. Rattigan. I don't know how you guys do it in the US of A with the Trump mentality. But in Jamaica, you start with the King's Council.
I am sorry.
So the ladies first not flying here. There is a hierarchy.
You know what?
Thank you very much.
Miss Valerie Nita Robertson, you have my apologies, ma'am. Very
my
sorry.
Darling, learn one thing about Valerie. I have no ego. No.
Well, then, Isaac, I rebuke you, Isaac. Anyway, Valerie, do you mind if I call you Valerie?
No, of course not.
Okay, all right. No, Valerie, just in a few minutes, take as much time. Just tell us, who is Valerie Nita Robertson, please?
Oh, a country girl from a big family, 6 of us, 6 siblings, 5 siblings and myself. St. Elizabeth, Appleton Estate, Thornton Primary School, scholarship to Wolmer's. I miss the country so much. Kingston is not my thing, but I came with a purpose, and that purpose was to seek justice for the underprivileged and those who can't afford it. And Isaac will tell you I do many free cases. A lot of people don't know.
That's what I talk about. Yeah.
They seem to think I only do the big cases. That's not true. So I'm still fighting. I'm still in the circle, trying to fight for justice, but a little disappointed in that, I've been doing this for 46 or 47 years.
A lot. You
Yes,
look
that's
at
small.
positive. What do you mean positive?
I believe that the justice system is not what it should be. And in my view, it has declined from my early days. And that to me is disappointing because I believe that we should be building on what we have achieved already. Um, but so be it. And we don't have many young people who are coming up to fill the gap. And that's why people like John Clark and Isat are very, very important. And I know the struggles. Been there, came out of it, and it looks as if we are going back there. But I believe these are two of the strong lawyers who can stand up for what is right and to ensure that people can get justice.
All right. Thank you, Valerie. We're definitely gonna come back and explore some of the things that you just mentioned. My people them come from St. Elizabeth too, Them come from
Really?
yeah,
No, that's why I didn't like you.
yeah, them come from and them still there. Them still there.
Yeah, yeah.
John, tell us a little bit about John Clark. I've heard so much about John Clark. It's my first time actually seeing you. So tell us, who's John Clark?
Well, when I grew up in I,
We're having difficulty hearing you, John.
Yeah.
No,
Did he say he grew up in St. Elizabeth?
That's just what I heard.
Oh,
we're
that's
not
that.
hearing you at
We're
all.
not hearing you, John.
if you're not hearing me, you have to hear me now.
We're hearing you now, yes.
Still not hearing me?
Yeah,
All right,
hearing you.
perfect. Yes, I was born in Kingston, but I grew up as a ward of the state, and I grew up in Saint Elizabeth because that was where
See?
my foster mother is from.
We're in St. Elizabeth.
So I yes,
John, we're in St.
Goshen,
Elizabeth.
Saint Elizabeth,
Oh,
Goshen,
gosh.
Goshen.
Mhm.
Goshen.
Yes, and I went to one of the better schools in Saint Elizabeth. I would
Don't
say
tell
the
me
best
stats.
school, Monroe College,
Don't tell me stats.
and
Did he say stats?
Stats. That's no. I didn't say Stats. That's our very good rival. But it's, so if you ask Stats what's the best school, they'll say Stats, and if you ask Monroe, they'll say Monroe.
Okay.
So we always fight it out on the football field. Where, to be quite frank, Monroe normally lose. So I don't know. But in any event, I always wanted to to be a lawyer. And one of the main reasons was that as a ward of the state, I interacted with the courtroom system very early. Because in fact I was placed as a ward by virtue of a court order. Because as the record would reveal, I was found in a garbage bin. So the court actually would have made an order in relation to what would have been my care. But as a child, we would have little concerns in relation to how certain things were being dealt with. And ordinarily, I would see or thought that the justice system was the mechanism by which justice was done. And invariably, some of the concerns that I had as a child, you'll see them repeated in different iterations for different citizens. And as such, that has become, in fact, one of the hallmark in relation to what um, encourages me in law, because I see every single day as a fight for justice. And just as I listen to King's Counsel and I listen to what spur on, I realize that there seems to be a common thread even between all our stories, because I know I said one of his motivation would be getting justice for his clients, and I guess it's a motivation for all of us. But we are all trying our best to do what we can to achieve a fairer and more just Jamaica, and I guess we're utilizing the justice system as a mechanism to achieve what we can. So
Wow.
that is me.
All right, sir. Alessandra, talk to us.
Hello again. It is a pleasure to be in the company of such great men and a great woman in the profession. I am simply Alessandra Le Beach, daughter of Spanish Town, Jamaica, proud past student of the St. Jago High School, and I see I start rolling my eyes. He's used to it by now. It is something that I proudly claim. Um, I am honored to be a part of this profession, especially on a day like today when we have achieved something that I believe is so monumental and instrumental in how our justice system will go forward. As of today, John Clark, he and I would have had an experience that would have definitely altered how I came into the profession and my views of the profession, in that when they had the state of emergency, my father was one of the persons who was detained unnecessarily and unreasonably. He was detained for a week on a traffic ticket that was paid, and he would have had the proof of payment at the time that they would have arrested him, and yet his detention lasted for 7 days. And at that time I was at the Norman Manley Law School, and trust me, that was a definite turning point for me to determine whether or not I really wanted to even come into this profession again, having gone through that experience. So it is a passion of mine to reunite persons with their families. So when I sit here and I'm able to see clients with reuniting with their families, it is a definite passion of mine, and it always gets me very emotional because I know personally what it was like when my father came back home, and even though it was just 7 days, there was a change, and it does something to someone's psyche to be held and detained unlawfully and unnecessarily. So that is my contribution to the profession, that passion of getting persons justice. Thank you.
All right. Now, folks, Isaac Buchanan is one of the co-hosts around here, and most of you, you know his story, but not all of you. I suspect that we have some visitors today, and for that reason, I would like him to just give his 2 minutes of who is Isaac Buchanan, apart from Big Youth son. Who is that?
Oh man, you killed my intro. I have nothing to add. No, so my family is two from St. Elizabeth, but we re-up from
Wow.
St. Thomas from time to time. Big up my granny. But we don't say, and for the purpose of Rattigan, because they're here bragging against us, but we are from the Meadowbrook, wherever that is. But yeah, Meadowbrook. I mean, my story is pretty much one where I was given the opportunity to do law after experiencing incarceration. I'll say it like that. There were many people who it's not a feat that would have happened by myself. There are many people who believe in me, and in Jamaica, where people may say the worst about it, but we have a constitution. I was introduced to the constitution through Tracy Robinson, again through Bert Samuels, and I know that the constitution works. It is that very constitution that gave me the opportunity to be a lawyer. So even where it is that you may have the brightest brain and you may do everything, there are just certain things you need good character. You need to be you need to have compassion, empathy, and you need to know that your service to the people is paramount if you're going to be an attorney. Um, I sit at the feet of Miss Valerie Nita, because you all know I can start from last year, the worst experience of my life, when the entire Jamaica was against me and I was thrown out on the road. Miss Nita says, "Come, it will not happen. You are bright. You will not fail." And she take me up off the road and put me in her office. Not with so the media says one thing, but when you sit amongst greatness, I could cry telling you that there are people who listen. I don't worry, and clients, they are not your best friends. But what I will say is that you love them close and far, and you do justice. John will say, "Hey, you have time and things that justice is about," but I believe in it. And when I buck my foot several times, John is there. So these are two senior attorneys who, oh my God, man, they rein me in more than I need to, and I have to behave myself now. And I'm speaking in the abstract because I have to give them their flowers while they are alive. And most importantly is we learn, you learn really fast that Jamaica is a very small place and we are learning. The law is a very powerful thing, and just like the English language, it's something that you have to learn. It's always evolving, and as we do that, we are now at a time in life where the more things change is the more it remains the same. But notwithstanding that, there are things that we have to do. So as I transition to tell you about Miss Labiche now, whom the first day I walk into the university as a big silverback old man talk about I go learn law, she sat beside me, and very brilliant young lady. She too has her story. I don't know why she never tell it, because she was traumatized because her father was locked up. But she had an amazing story. But she was there as a character who, this young lady studied with me when she didn't have $1 to take her exam. And I would say, Lexi, study, because the God I serve, he always worked it out. And she studied for 2 semesters with me, knew the material more than me, and she never sit one exam. But I remember her and I told her, the God I serve, believe in him because he makes no mistakes. And to see her become an attorney and to see her just getting just back into the race. She turned off the camera because she gone cry. But I'm saying these things. These are extraordinary people that we have life of trauma and strive, and notwithstanding we overcome, and we are just markers of what the common man experience who don't have the opportunities we have. And while it is that there will be people who will say other things, I'm just happy to be able to serve and be a part and know that no matter what is said, I'm passionate about helping the people, doing justice in Jamaica. Because if the least among us is really, really not able to enjoy life, you really can't. Money isn't everything, and that's certainly what I'm going to do. And the last thing I'm going to say is, before I turn a lawyer, I watch Miss Nita in court, best cross-examiner in the criminal law, hands down. I hope that she writes that book. And if you learn from the best, you can only be the best. That's why I'm happy she's here, so I can say this publicly, because the internet and the media is a very unkind place. And if they don't know, we suffer from this thing where it doesn't matter because we know, but everybody needs to know. And that's it. Thank you.
All right. Good. Outstanding. Now, there's a common theme here, and several. One of them is that all 4 of you came from humble beginnings. I don't hear anybody say them come from Beverly Hills or them father owned plane or anything like that. Isaac's grandfather, no, he was a hard worker, because I went to Meadowbrook, and the school is a block away from where he resided. But again, that's the common theme. So let me start with Valvy, and then I'll bring Prezi in. You said that you had some concerns about the judicial system, the direction it was.
Yes.
Please tell us, what are those concerns? And because we only have a limited time for ask you questions, because Prezi will line up after me. A second question is, given your background, who or what was your inspiration to become a lawyer?
I don't know, the universe sometimes, most times, determines your purpose. And from an early age, I just was focused on defending people. And I believe that is what is, when I do that, that's my authentic self. I was built for that. That was my purpose. And I enjoy doing that. In terms of what has changed in the legal profession, and I know a lot of people are going to be upset with me, but it doesn't matter, because one of the things I was taught by my parents is that you must always be your authentic self and speak what you believe and what you see. And I believe that when I see the young attorneys now struggling in court, I get extremely concerned. I wish I could assist all of them. I do assist some, but some cannot be assisted because they just have a view of their own and they don't want to say, I don't know. But we all at some stage don't know. I didn't know in the beginning either. But I learned from people like Ian Ramsey, K.D. Knight, Frank Phipps, Mr. Justice Carr, President of the Court of Appeal, Mr. Justice Panton, who retired not long ago but was a great president of the Court of Appeal. So we must not always feel we can't learn from somebody else, and we need to learn from others. But I believe that the court has lost its view. It has lost its purpose of what it means, what the liberty of the subject means, and how we can give effect to liberty. So the struggles that these young attorneys have now to get bail for their clients, even in circumstances when it is obvious that they should get bail, I cry for them. And I cry for the clients too, because we have lost, or the courts have lost their focus on that. And I think one of the basic problems, and I throw this out to the diaspora, because there are so many of you overseas who have lived in a first world country, and you know the difference between Jamaica and the country you live in. We need to fight for these things and ensure that they exist. So one of the problems I have, and I believe that John Clark and Isat will agree with me, because they see it every day, is that we need to reform our constitution, because I believe that is the platform that can give us what we want in terms of the delivery of justice to our people. You know, I don't think some of you know, I mean, I could talk on this for hours, that most of the judges are taken from the DPP's department. So they go to the DPP from law school, or maybe from a firm, a small firm. They go there and they work their way up to the resident magistrate, or the corporate, or the parish court, as they now call it. And then they work their way up to the Supreme Court and become eligible for the Court of Appeal. It is my view that if you want, because I'm making a comparison between the judges I appeared before when I just came out of law school, which was 1977 people. Don't bother calculate my age now. And I can make the comparison. You hear them say, he who lives the longest knows the most? It is so true. I can make the comparison. Things I used to undergo, the platforms I operated on, the young lawyers now don't have that advantage. It has gone through the window. And I believe one of the problems is that we need to look back at the system of justice, and we need to make some decisions. It is my view that if you want to be a judge, then you need to have a school for judges. If it's only 6 months, 8 months, because let me tell you, I am sometimes flabbergasted by what is delivered in our courts. We have good judges. We do have good judges. But we lawyers, we can tell you who the good judges are. We can tell you because we can identify them. But we have judges who I don't believe are up to the standard required of the delivery of justice. And I'm very concerned about it. And I'm so upset that I'm going to leave the profession, because I'm going to retire shortly. I'm going to leave the profession and I have left it in the state in which it is in, and for these younger people to struggle through it.
Um,
Basically, that's my
well,
unfiltered view.
well, yeah, I'm sad to hear that you're contemplating retirement because I was looking forward to come and sit at your feet and do what ISAT is doing now. I was hoping you'd take me in off of this program here in the office.
Bad man.
You can call me, man. I'll do some personal tutorials for you.
All right, cool. Mr. President, you have a question for Ms. Valerie?
Yes, Miss Valerie, good evening or good afternoon. Welcome to the program. How are you?
I'm good, thanks.
Now, over the years, I'm sure you have seen your skills and your perspective evolve as an attorney. But are there any pivotal moments or cases that have significantly contributed to your personal growth as King's Counsel?
Well, yes, I believe every case has contributed, some more than others, because I've done some very tough cases. It appears that they usually drop in my lap. And I have a particular style that I use for my cases, and it has proven to be, the right approach to matters. Boy, I can't. One case I believe I was extremely satisfied with is Lessine Edwards.
Yes.
Lessine Edwards went to the Privy Council not long ago, I would call it in recent times. And it was a case with mountains of difficulty. And I believe that we battled through the trial court. I mean, really battled. We battled through the Court of Appeal, and we were delivered by the Privy Council. So that's why I say at all times, I give the Privy Council praise, because I knew that Lessine Edwards was innocent. But the system of justice that we have, the system which we need to work on, just did not deliver justice to Lessine Edwards. But it is a benchmark in my mind, because I was battling the system, and even though I was battling, it's not an easy thing for me to do. I don't give up hope, but in Lessine Edwards, I almost did. And the results delivered by the Privy Council was really an emotional thing for me. So I give that one a standout. But there are many. I can remember Mark, oh goodness, what's his name again, guys? Mark Sangster. That was another
Yes.
case you might not remember, in which I battled disclosure, the failure to disclose by the DPP. And Mark Sangster was an absolutely innocent man, as the video that we were able to get eventually disclosed that he was not one of the robbers. And the police knew, and I believe the DPP knew, that the video, because they must have viewed the video. You would have been very negligent if you didn't view that video from the Western Union robbery. And I was very satisfied by the judgment of the Privy Council. Do you know that we had to go all the way to St. Lucia to find the video? Yes, the video was being used by Western Union as a teaching moment for staff as to how to behave or not to behave in a robbery. And it was the Privy Council who asked for it to be found, and we had to go all the way to St. Lucia. Where it was being used. So there are many cases. Oh goodness, I couldn't go through them all,
But let me,
As I say, Lessing Edwards was one very fulfilling to me because I was a little doubtful of the decision of the Privy Council.
Valerie, let me bring in John for a bit here and talk to you. John, you came from um looking for an adjective to describe your background.
Humble beginnings.
Yeah, you came from a place where you should not have survived. And I'm talking about survive as a person, much less to thrive as an attorney. So what was what was your inspiration through all of this? Because you came from a background that people didn't, I suspect, didn't expect anything of you. There you were a ward of the state, found in a garbage pail, and you battled and you made your way through all of that, and now here you are, a renowned attorney in Jamaica. Do you pinch yourself sometimes and say, "Is this real?" Or do you just accept it and say, "This is John Clark. I deserve this. I worked hard for it. This is who I am."
Well, for starters, one of the reasons why I have a soft spot for the diaspora is that my foster mother was in fact a Jamaican citizen who was in the United States. That's Miss Margaret Baines, God bless her soul. And she was so in fact it's when she came back to retire in Jamaica that she decided that, well, I'm going to adopt a child from the children's home. And then she would indicate and had instilled in me the view that one, you deserve to occupy whatever space, and you deserve for your voices and your voice to be heard, and you must not treat yourself as less than anyone. And there is I believe that you instill that hard work is one of the most important things that I need to do, and invariably whatever I want to achieve will have to come by hard work. I have to work harder than most, because ultimately somehow that would somehow be a mechanism by which you would attain whatever it is that you want to attain. So yes, that was one of the basis for me believing that one, I can achieve anything that I put my mind to, and ultimately I that was important because I grew up with an environment where I because based on her age, she couldn't qualify at the time to even sign on for me to get student loan. So I had to work very hard to qualify essentially for a scholarship to ensure that I could go to university. Because the choices I had at that stage was either I get a scholarship or I'm going to work before I can go to university. And I come from deep rural St. Elizabeth. So the work that I was contemplating was some work in, and I have a problem with hog pen, but some work in my in a hog pen until I could save sufficient funds to do what I want to do. So ultimately, luckily for me, because at the time I think there's only 7 scholarships the government afforded or made available. So luckily, I was able to qualify for one, and that was how I went to university. But I've always, as a child, had my own little concerns about every little thing that I think needs to be changed systemically. So I formed the desire then to see how it is that the law, and by advocating for change through the law, could achieve some of the changes that I think were necessary. And listening to King's Counsel, we lost for the cases that we studied in law school, like Mark Sangster, which is one of the greatest cases in terms of jurisprudence, and the work that she had done in that particular matter warms my heart, because it means that what we were originally envisioning, that is that through hard work and through person's dedication such as herself, law can change in the right direction. Because what had taken place in that particular case, and even Lissine Edwards, is a slow development in the law to correct some systemic problems. And I'm happy that we're having this particular discussion as we reflect on these developments over the period of
Well,
our collective lives.
Alessandra, I'm going to come to you, but I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to ask Valerie, if you could ask John one question, only one question, what would that question be?
Goodness gracious. Um, let me just say this before I go on. John Clark and Issa Buchanan are the future of the development of law in Jamaica. They are exceptionally bright. John Clark has a fantastic mind. I've watched him in the court and in difficult circumstances. And you know, the thing I admire, you know, they say you can learn something from everybody. I'm a very passionate, hot person, I would call it. John is so calm in court.
Valerie, joke him, no man. Joke him.
I admire him for that.
Valerie.
He's super calm. And what comes out of his mouth is what gets him where he wants to go.
Joke him now, Valerie.
Forward. I hope I'm alive. I hope I'm alive when John they ask and then they propose QC for John. I hope I'm alive.
Valerie, joke him.
Fantastic, these two. If I were to ask John one thing, I would say to him.
No, not say to him. Ask him, Valerie.
Will you work with me?
Yes.
Developing the problems that exist in children's homes behind the scenes. I want to write about it, and I definitely want to do something positive about having our children's homes reformed. And I believe John knows what is happening there.
Yes.
It's a problem, and we need our children. The fact that John survived it is against the odds. And I wish all of those who go there survive it. If I had the money, I would open a children's home of my own.
All right. Well, Mr. President.
Yes, sir.
But Mr. President, I want you to ask Alison.
Okay, I really wanted to ask John a question, but Alexandra, you know you're my favorite. So no, there's a quick question for John. You didn't answer the question. Will you help Valerie? Yes or no?
Yes, and just that is a project that I in fact triggered my desire to be in law, because there is in fact a lot, and by even asking that question, you know what you're talking about. There is in fact a lot of work that needs to be done, and in that area, because it was, and I'm aware of the state, and in fact, as a person who would have gone through certain circumstances where essentially felt you have no rights, and essentially you're just there to be abused and to be lucky to be alive. That there are certain things that I'd love to see addressed in terms of how complaints from wards are dealt with, and I'd love for that situation to examine, because there are a lot of untold stories and untold trauma from children's home. And in fact, so looking forward to that.
So my question for you, as a successful attorney, how do you deal with the whole issue of imposter syndrome coming from a situation, from humble beginnings? And what advice would you give other people who are climbing up the social ladder that might be struggling with imposter syndrome?
Well, to be quite clear, I think you blow me out of the water with that question, and I hear Rattigan talking about joking, and I was hoping Barry would not joke me with that question. What they come like is you come to me, but just to be quite clear, let's speak about imposter syndrome. Is speaking about the doubt in one's own skills and successes. That's what you're referring to.
We'll work with that definition, yes.
Yeah, but then in my particular case, I don't really do anything, and in fact, there's a biblical verse which escapes me at this time. I don't do anything essential. Any case that I do, and I take on to achieve a certain goal. So I could care less who's happy with the particular thing, and unfortunately, with our justice system, you don't achieve success at once. It's incrementally. So we're nowhere near where we need to be. But there is some systemic and deep systemic changes that we want to see achieved. And in fact, I hope that when I reach King's Council's age, I look like her,
at least in terms of as young and they're as accomplished as she is. But more importantly, that we'll be able to change some of the systemic problems that exist. So I haven't really spent any time examining my own skills or lack thereof, or my successes or lack thereof. What I'm most concerned about is
Or if
this.
you're deserving of it.
Well, I don't even concern myself I'm deserving of that, but I concern myself with are the persons who are detained right now as we speak, who are the persons for whom we'll be doing whatever we want to do. So when you speak about the retrial, when you speak about those persons who are still in custody, having to await their day in court, when you speak about, so that concerns me most because I would have, from my earliest age as a memory, been what I would classify as essentially a victim of certain over certain failures of administrative failures. So in that respect, I'd love to see how those are addressed more than I concern myself with whether with me personal and my personal successes and failures. So in any event, I always, because let us look back at Alexandra's case, for example, and Alexandra's father, which I played a very small role in that matter. What concerned me when her father was out was the fact that he had hundreds of other persons who were in, and that would have dealt invariably with a challenge that we later brought, that me and Isaac and others, where we challenged whether or not persons could be detained and by the state of public emergency. And we obtained a very successful judgment which clarified the law in that respect and had the government re-examining that. But we're still fighting as we speak now to have further inroad made by the court because we know by the conservative nature of our courts that things will be done only in small steps and there are persons who are suffering as we speak from the effects of the failure of the administration to do what needs to be done. So for example, there's a gentleman who was detained on the state of emergency who had to flee Jamaica because he's fearful that he will be killed in Jamaica land we love. And there are persons who are still reeling from the effects of those kind of things. So that would take greater precedent than my own desire for anything else.
All right.
Percy, you have a question for Alessandra?
I do. I always do.
There you go.
My question for you is a very simple one, Alexandra. But the legal profession require a strong ethical foundation. Can you talk about a time when your ethics was hit and how you navigated that situation while true to your principles?
I'm sorry. When time when my ethics was what?
Tested. A time when your ethics was tested. Like compromising evidence or saying.
No, I can't think of a time when that happened on my end. Only situation I found to be very complicated was watching an organ of the state trying to coerce a witness to give evidence against their own will and what to do in that moment. Thankfully, the matter ended in our favor, but that was definitely a dilemma and it was heartbreaking to watch it being done in front of my eyes because unknowing to them at the time, I was on that matter as well. So that to me would have been the only situation I could think of where ethics would have been a dilemma. What do I do? Do I speak up about it and bring it to the attention of the judge? What to do in that moment?
I have a question for that, but before I do, Alessandra, I'd like you to ask Isaac a question that you've been wanting to ask me, but you haven't. Is
Me?
your question? Yes.
Yes.
I'm so upset you asked that. I said, why you do that to me a while ago? That is the
I was
question.
caught in an ethics dilemma, and I'm glad I got caught in it before they were failing up at the school. And I chose my ethical mind to speak the truth. I hope that answered the question. Thank you.
I said no, me. I he did in fact made me cry a while ago. So I just wanted to know why he would have done that to me. But
Mhm.
if people understand the dynamics between Isaac and I, he's one of two persons who I will get on any kind of arena with and I will cry. It's him and Miss Kitty. My relationship with them is just on another level. And anytime we're around each other, I have to always catch myself. I get choked up real easily because they're two people who I love greatly. And I must say, John Clark, your role in my father's matter was far from small.
Yes.
it was a it was an inspiration to me as a law student at the time that justice is possible, and that is very important. Mrs. Nita Robinson would have indicated the decline in our justice system and the problems that it has. So for me to have witnessed that myself and to have been in law school, that was another dilemma. Do I want to even go on and become an attorney anymore, having witnessed that? But John, thank you. You definitely stepped in and stepped up, and you were able to get me, my father, to be home back with us that same day, thanks to your good efforts. And I sat him know me from we were what 10 years, more than 10 years in now in our friendship, and so I'm very grateful to you. He has definitely both himself and Mr. Clark have been in terms of my mentoring and where I am today as an attorney. I pull from them, I bother them all the time. Hey, I have a situation, somebody call me, what do I do? They've included me, I've been able to observe them in practice, and Mrs. Nita Robinson is definitely right. They are the future. And it is a positive look for persons who are coming up in the profession and wondering what it is going to look like. This is a good look for the future. So I'm grateful to both men for their kind guidance and tutelage in my career thus far. You have both been very instrumental.
So Isaac is a fully vetted friend, and you have no question that you want to ask him, but good.
Definitely not. Definitely not.
All right. Let me turn to King's Council here. Ask you a question. King's Council. No, there's been a lot of brouhaha about the Constitutional Reform Committee's recommendations,
Yeah.
and they're talking about deeply entrenched provisions and type of
Listen,
government we
listen,
should have,
listen.
and also should the Privy Council be our last and final destination for justice. Now you have gone through all of this discussion, this analysis. I don't know what the other panelists, your colleagues, I don't know what they think. What I'd like for you to do is explain what is your position on it and why, because then I'm going to ask them as well if they agree.
Let me just say this first. We're really paying lip service to the Constitution. We really are joking. What's going on now is a joke. It's a big joke. If I sat down with you, it couldn't take one day, maybe a week, and explain to you the Constitution and the impact that each section has and what we can do to change it. You would be alarmed. We are joking. The future of Jamaica is the amendment to the Constitution. Sensible amendments. We are joking. We are tired of playing politics. We need to put people above politics. So what is going on now to me is of no value. Listen, Jamaica is too small to have a final court of appeal. Don't argue with me about that because I am not going to agree. And it has nothing to do with the intellectual capacity of our judges. Some of them are extremely bright. Okay? Has nothing to do. It has to do with our society that is small. Everybody knows everybody. Everybody has a view about everybody. And when these matters come before the court, it slips between the cracks. What you need is a body that is not influenced by who is who in Jamaica and the politics of Jamaica, and to just deliver justice. And when I see that, I will adopt it. Until then, the people in England, who are white people, and I don't want anybody to think I am a colonialist. I am not. I could have left Jamaica when I graduated law school. I had offers. I would have been a multimillionaire now. I chose to stay in my country. because I want to make my contribution here. Okay? It has nothing to do with these white people in England. Just understand, diaspora, that the laws that we practice were created and developed by the British. We adopted it because of colonialism. We could and we still can have our own laws that reflect our social conditions, etc., or etc., etc. But we have not done it, and we can do it. So when you come to curse the white people in England who understand the legal system, because their legal system is them created, them understand what justice is. Why should I take it away from them when I can get it here? My experience in this country, right, is that we are not ready for Jamaican Court of Appeal. And I believe the same problems that we have in Jamaica, because it is too small, is the same problems we are having and will have in respect of the Caribbean Court of Justice. And it has nothing to do with intellect, please. There are judges there that are brighter than me. The present president of the Court of Appeal, Mrs. MacDonald Bishop, is an extremely intellectual, capable, what we call in Jamaica, bright person. That's not the issue. And we need a school for judges who can get rid of the biases that we have. Everybody has a bias. I have. But I have been taught by some excellent lecturers in Barbados and at the Norman Manley Law School how to jettison my biases and to head for what I want, which is justice.
So, Valerie, in addition to that, you mentioned the Caribbean Court of Justice, that you think that the familiarity is just too small for that. So if Jamaica should move to become a republic when the Privy Council will no longer have any say in the judiciary, how would that work in a republic? How would you structure it?
Trinidad has kept the Privy Council.
So they can still keep it. That's what you would advocate for. That's what you're saying?
Until I see a court that can jettison all the biases. There are Caribbean Court of Appeal judgments that have political tinges to it, and the outcome was not favorable, and it went to the Privy Council, and they were able to dissect it because they don't care about political parties. They don't care about individuals. One of the reasons why Vybz Kartel was able to succeed is because nobody over there knows who Vybz Kartel is and cares who Vybz Kartel is. And that's the kind of shedding of bias, because let's agree, people in this society have biases against Vybz Kartel for one reason or the other. And that is why his trial was unfair. And we said so from the beginning. It's unfair. What you have done is unfair. But we have been taught as lawyers to jettison any bias we may have, or don't take the case. If you have a bias against the client, don't take the case, because it's not about money. It's about justice.
Valerie, you mentioned a while ago that the system was created, implemented, maintained to some degree by people outside of Jamaica, and that they know the system better than the people there. And so, in terms of objective justice, you're saying that because they don't have any they have biases, but not as it pertains to people in Jamaica. Because, for example, you said they don't know Vybz Kartel from the next case. No, with this constitutional reform committee, I know you say it's a joke, but just bear with me for a sec for the purpose of this question. Let's say it's not a joke, right? Just for the sake of this question. And they're able to make significant changes to the constitution now where it's reflective of a Jamaica that represents Jamaicans. There's, as I said, the Jamaicanized constitution. At that point, do you think then that the Privy Council, as the final arbiter of justice, should be relocated to Jamaica at that point?
No, the first of all, the process that is going on now to reform the constitution is purely political. Okay? It should not be. It should not be. We, John, Isat, myself, and Alexandra, what's her name again? Alessandra are the people who go to court every day. We know where the system falls apart. We know what corrections need to be made. You don't go to court. So sometimes when I speak about things, you will hear me, but you can't identify with it because you have not experienced it. Experience teaches wisdom. Yes, there can be amendments to the Constitution that will safeguard the political system, that will safeguard our system of justice, but it needs to be, that committee needs to have persons who understand what is needed because they have experienced it, before we can throw the baby with the bathwater.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're graced with 3 young attorneys here. Not that you're not young, because you certainly look like one of them, you know. But let me ask them. Let me go to John and ask John, because I know what ISAT's views are already. And you and I, we've had several discussions about the Constitution. In fact, we were teaching the Constitution at one point around there, and I think we shall resume. But John, give us your take on that. Very simple question, should the Privy Council be relocated to Jamaica? Should that Jamaican court be the final arbiter of justice for Jamaicans? Or should it be the Caribbean Court of Justice?
Let me say this before John answer you.
Go ahead, please.
You see me? My
Yes.
back broad as ever. John is young counsel. Okay? And I'm going to let him speak, but let me remind you that he has years ahead of him in the courts. They can't do me anything now.
All right. Well, John, you know what, Valerie? I'll take counsel. I will ask John that question. John, when is the birth?
Maybe you speak, but John is very straightforward.
John, you're muted. You're muted, John.
I have a different view from King's Counsel on this point, sadly.
John, before you're going to
is informed. Yes.
John, hold on. You may want to take her counsel. Queen's counsel.
No, man, John can't handle himself.
No, you want to answer that question, because can always ask a question like, what's your favorite color? And what can
answer, man. I'm not afraid. But just be quite clear. I'm for the CCJ, but my reason for being for the CCJ is influenced by my own economic realities and antecedents. I have no difficulty with the Privy Council except the concern about the cost. And I know right now that I'm speaking to at least 10 persons who are Tower Street who wants their matter to be brought before the Privy Council, and who the only hindrance that they face in accessing the highest court in the land is the issue of cost. How do we as persons who are not working, who are incarcerated, access our highest courts? And currently what happened for persons like Lucine Edwards, where that you will have some good British souls who make themselves available pro bono to bring the matters before the board. But these good British souls will have to review the matters, and they'll pick which matter they'll carry for whatever reason. And in some cases, many Jamaican citizens can't access our highest court simply on the issue of cost. And if there was a way that the matters could be handled by the Privy Council without the cost implications, saying that somebody who's in my shoes, who may be wrongfully in prison and who may face a judgment that they don't like from the Court of Appeal, and which is wrong, can have their voices heard in our highest land, then I'd have no difficulty. But on the issue of cost, when I know for a fact in some cases poor persons will have to find millions of Jamaican dollars literally to have their matter heard in Privy Council. They're talking about agents' fee. So I pay different tiers of lawyers in England. They pay an agent who's the first lawyer, who are solicitors who don't even argue in court. They have to pay a barrister, and some barristers can cost up to £100,000. And there are many Jamaicans who just don't even have $100,000 Jamaican dollars to pay the Jamaican lawyers must testify that £100,000. So on the issue of cost, I'm most concerned that as it stands right now, the vast majority of our cases are not heard in the highest court, especially for criminal matters, simply because the appellants can't afford to pay the cost to go to Privy Council. And the CCJ cost, in fact, is way less because you don't have to pay the agents. And in fact, there are many lawyers like us who would prepare to assist with the matter, who can deal with it at a cost that is way below the cost to go to England. And in fact, from my limited experience recently, I recall even the cost to go to England can be in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. And that in fact, some lawyers are not even paid the plane fare that it takes to just to go to England to do matters in our court of appeal. And that is by our own government. So on that cause, it really is the biggest consideration that really is on my chest. And I appreciate the Privy Council judgment. I like the Mark Sankson case, for example. When I heard King's Counsel in relation to the fact that they're concerned that we're too small a nation, but I remind, I'm sure the Council doesn't need my reminder that there are cases decided by the CCJ which go against the grain of what the politician wants. And one such case would be the Attorney General of Guyana against Cedric Richardson, which was a 2018 CCJ 17 case, in which in that particular case, the government was arguing against a extension of time. That is the bar, the constitutional limit for the president of Guyana, and the government wanted that to be removed. And the CCJ reviewed it and decided in a manner which was inconsistent with what the government essentially wanted. So the CCJ have shown through their jurisprudence a tendency, even though we're a small Caribbean country, to deliver justice in some form of way. But then for those litigants who some of them I have to talk to on Monday, who still want their matters heard in the Privy Council, and who just don't even have the first money to even pay the Jamaicans to even look at the case, that is my biggest the tip. There's nothing else that can cause me to be supportive of the Privy Council in light of that fact.
All right.
And also the visa too. The visa. It's also very offensive too. I recall even with ISAT, my good friend ISAT, when he was to go to England, we were sitting wondered if an attorney called to the Jamaican bar and to go beg to pay money for him to go to England, and they were there wondering would they even allow ISAT to go to England, because I have to beg the king essentially to process the visa as the British persons, and we have to be talking to British lawyers worrying that they may not even grant him the visa. So in light of all of that factor, I think it's very offensive. And we need to get a visa to go to argue our highest court.
Get my visa. I don't mind. I will beg for my visa. I don't care. Don't mix me. I love the Privy Council.
John, if I want to go to England or I want to go to the United States to visit relatives, I have to go and get a visa. So, you know.
Well, I have no difficulty with that. I'm saying our highest court can't say that you need a visa to come to our highest court.
Well, listen, maybe we need to look at constitutional reform that will make the government pay for those people who have cases worth going elsewhere to go. Maybe that's where we need to look to reduce the cost or remove the cost.
Casey, look, Casey, now I'm being facetious here, but how do we come up with a mechanism to have the government pay for attorneys to represent defendants in England when they said that they're not paying for DPP personnel to go and argue, or DPP personnel to go to observe cases in England, but we see them on video. So I don't think them going pay for nobody for God.
No, it's not what they want. If we have constitutional reform that makes the government stand up and do the right thing for its citizens, we will get there.
Right.
It's a matter we need to consider.
No, the only reason I mention it is because I filed an ATI asking for the cost associated with the Vibes Cartel case,
Yes.
from trial to the appeal, the appeal in Jamaica, the one that was just concluded.
Yeah.
And the response was that they paid 33 million for attorneys in England, but they didn't pay. They paid zero for Jamaican attorneys to go to England. In fact, they said no attorney from Jamaica went to the trial, but we have videotape of two persons from the DPP's office sitting there. So, I guess I shouldn't trust my lying eyes.
No, well, that is because they have legislation and they have things in place to allow for the protection of their citizens and the right to to put your case before the Privy Council. We need constitutional reform, and gentlemen, it can work. Trust me, it can work. In
Well, speak
fact,
to the question.
in fact,
Speak to John's. Sorry to interrupt you. Speak to John's question about cost. Most of the defendants in there, they can't afford. Them family
yes, so the
can't.
government must protect its citizens. If they wish to go elsewhere and they have a case that is worth going, sorry, government must pay for it.
But
Yeah,
who makes the determination if it's worth going? Because someone would have to make the determination what's worth going. So that would still come back to the local people, and maybe some implicit bias may be involved.
well, I don't think that Lessing Edwards was a police officer. He was not a rich person. Neither was his family. But the legal team out here didn't charge him anything because we were confident his matter would needed to be attended to by an impartial tribunal. So yeah, I know the cost is one thing. I know it is offensive to have to go for a visa, but what I say is this: we have a constitution. In that constitution, we can ensure that people who are worth going can get there. It can work.
Well, let me ask Alessandra. I know you're a relatively young attorney, but you've I'm sure you've heard this topic being discussed. If you haven't even been a participant in that discussion, do you
Mhm.
have a view of this
I'm definitely pro Privy Council.
for Privy Council?
Definitely, definitely. I believe that wherever there is justice, that is where we must go to get it attained. So far, I believe that the cost, yes, it is an important factor, but it doesn't make sense that persons will have better access to justice if it is that it is not how can I put this? I would prefer to bet on what I know to be sure, which is the Privy Council.
True.
Mhm.
So to say that it is easier to access the CCJ when I do not personally have that confidence in them is not an argument to me in favor of the CCJ. When I know from experience, I've been to the Privy Council, I've been involved in a case where I've seen justice being delivered for my clients. So I have faith in the Privy Council. I do not have faith in the CCJ. I do not think that they are as far removed as is necessary to address the issue of bias, as Mrs. Nita Robinson was speaking to earlier. That is
I
my opinion.
Okay. ISAT.
Yes.
This CJ handles certain cases coming out of Jamaica. Now, and Jamaica is subsidizing the CCJ. We're spending money on that.
Hmm.
Why is it that we shouldn't just go to the CCJ as a final court of justice, notwithstanding what you've heard? Why is it that we shouldn't use the CCJ? Give me your best argument.
The best argument. So listen, it's a matter of choice. I love Fari, and I love take big plane. So obviously, I'm going to want to go to the Privy Council. Look, see that council laughing at me. But yeah, there's something about the you know, you got big foreign, and you're doing big things, and it also make your lawyer feel, you know. Yeah, so that's for me. So it may be a very superficial difference. What I will say is, this is a matter of choice, and it should be a matter for the people of the country. I have no conflict because I have full confidence, and I'm not being political right now, but I have full confidence in Mark Golden, and he doesn't want the CCJ. He trolls me on it because he's saying CCJ and I'm saying Privy Council, but I'm also saying Mark Golden. So this is an issue that the people will have to pretty much resolve. But I make it clear, I'm for Mark Golden, but I love the Privy Council, and you have a serious, just because of Big Foreign. Because I can tell you, the judges of the CCJ, competent judges. I've experienced them in that jurisdiction. You can look at the Quincy McEwan case, and you can look at the reasoning, the freedom of expression. Their reasoning was adopted in the Virgo case. So I know competence. I'm also pro UE, and the majority of the judges who sit on the CCJ, they were trained at UE. So I would be a hypocrite to say that I have a problem with the CCJ. I don't. I just love Big Foreign, and that's the end of that's it. If I sound very superficial, I'm sorry, but I will go stand in line, beg for my visa. I should have some dual citizenship because I wouldn't give up mine. All of these things when you look at it, because I'm gonna love the diaspora. I can't wait for run up and down in Big Foreign. I'd all go to the United States Supreme Court. Is that an option on the table?
I'm a member of the U.S. Supreme. I'm licensed to practice before the U.S. Supreme Court, so I'll sign up for you.
All right, you have it. All right.
Yeah.
If I may do,
sure. Go ahead.
I hear the argument about the proximity location, but I've read carefully many of the decisions from the CCJ, and I don't see how they suffer in terms of reasoning from anything as relates to their proximity to any of the jurisdictions. That's one. And I see some persons talking about cost and saying that there is a waiver of cost before the Privy Council. There is for the Privy Council fee, but the agents generally don't waive their fees, nor do the barristers. And if they do, it's only in relation to pro bono matters. And I can tell you from experience that when persons are deciding to matter pro bono, it can take up to 4 to 8 years because the English barristers have to examine the cases to decide whether or not they're willing to offer their service to us for free. And I think it is very sad. And to be quite frank, my position, which is different from my two other colleagues, is very, very personal. Because I asked myself the question, could I, if I were incarcerated, afford the hotel fee, the lawyer fee, and all the attendant fees to pay an attorney to defend me before the board? And it's because of my own circumstances. I have my own biases, and I'm biased. I don't think that because I have a real doubt that I could afford it. That's because I have that doubt. And I know that for many Jamaicans, their access to justice is dependent on affordability. That has been one of the tipping scales, in my view, against supporting Privy Council. Not because Privy Council judgments are bad. In fact, I like the Privy Council judgments. I like how they deal with cases on behalf of many of my clients. But in many of those cases, and I can speak from experiences, on that point as well, my client's ability to afford it in one case was dependent on a friend assisting that client to pay the legal fee, and in other cases was dependent on non-governmental organization paying the fee, and another case was dependent on all the lawyers deciding to pay their own fare, including ISAT for Mr. Ray Morgan, paying our own fare and our own way to England to offset a promise by the client if to pay us back sometime in the future, which we don't know will ever come. And in many cases, we can't have access to justice or highest court being hinged essentially on your ability to afford it. Because then what it means is that it becomes illusory, and most Jamaicans will never be able to access it, not because they don't have a good case, but because their pocket not large enough.
Let me ask you something.
Yes, so then, John, the argument is what mechanism?
Hold on 1 second. I read something recently, and correct me if I'm wrong, where the Chief Justice, Lord, whatever his name is, for the Privy Council.
Lord Reed.
Yeah, where he said that um, you could argue cases remotely, and so that charge, the cost associated with traveling and accommodations and per diem, they would be obviated because you wouldn't have to travel. You could do it by the way we're conducting this discussion now.
But
Is
the
that
problem,
true?
this is true, and there's a case that anybody who hear an argument and is persuaded by that argument should read the Janice Causewell decision from the Privy Council, in which all the lawyers tried to argue the case remotely. They're all Jamaicans, and the system popped down, and the case ultimately, as the Privy Council system popped down, and the case ultimately had to be decided on paper. So in many cases, it is unfair for us to essentially say you must decide cases via Zoom, when even for the bias cartel decision, the website was also down in that particular case as well. It is unfair for themselves or their lawyers can access the court by going into court. And for us to say, well, you're so far, I can't afford, just do it via Zoom. There is a reason why lawyers prefer to have it in person, because then papers can be passed in persons, and there are things that are lost when it is not in person. For Miss Causewell, was lost in that particular case was that case decided by a high court was decided on paper because the Zoom platform popped down. I can read it in the judgment itself.
All right. KC, go ahead, please.
No, that's why I'm saying we have to find a mechanism that will allow those people who have cases that need to go to the Privy Council to be able to have their cases heard. And there's nothing to stop us. All you need is constitutional reform. Why? In fact, even persons who are charged and acquitted in the United States, you can recover damages for cases that are overturned, convictions are overturned. We don't have that here. It's time that we have certain things that can protect our citizens.
Yeah, I see what you're
And if we don't try, then it can't happen.
I agree.
We must look at what is possible.
I agree. Let me turn to a different item now. John, you mentioned, and it was said previously, but you're the last person to mention pro bono. And this is a question for all of you. Can you share a memorable pro bono case and its impact on the client and on the community? Let me start with Casey, since you're up.
Yes.
Well, the pro bono case I have is Lessine Edwards.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And how did it? Go ahead. Talk to us about how did it impact the community? Not just the person, your client, but the community. How did it change? Did it change law? Did it refine law? What was the outcome of that? That actually impacted the system.
Okay. Lessine Edwards actually was overturned for many reasons, but among them was the summation of the judge, which was biased. She had not put the defense of the accused. It also turned on the issue of the availability of expert witnesses in our jurisdiction that are affordable. That's another issue, because in Lessine Edwards we needed certain expert witnesses. The client could only afford one, and that was a handwriting expert. And what the Privy Council did was to have the expert witnesses in England go through the material and give their opinion.
Mm-hmm.
So not even that we have in Jamaica. So we have a political system that is lacking in terms of providing what is necessary for people to get justice at every level. Every level, we have that problem.
Let me Let me go to Alessandra. Alessandra, the pro bono question.
Yes, there is one client that comes to mind, and that is Jabari Williams. He was a sixth form student at the time who got into, I guess, some scuffle with another student, and he had to be taking time from school to be coming to court. It was a petty session matter, but he was from humble beginnings, and his family could not afford to pay. But my heart went out to him because he was such a humble young man, and the case was eventually thrown out, and I was just very happy that I could have assisted him and he could have gone back to prioritizing his studies at the time. So that for me is the pro bono matter that sticks out. And even though his mother um, has been very supportive, even the other day when the announcement um, in the retrial matter with Mr. Palmer, Mr. Campbell, and their co-accused was announced. She called me to congratulate me. She's invested in my success. So those kind of things, it warms the heart and it's an encouragement to help those who are in need and just genuinely cannot afford it.
Outstanding, outstanding. John,
Boy, I don't even know where to start, but there have
let's start with the One Jamaica Legal Defense Foundation.
the point is many of the matters. One of the key things that ordinarily trigger me is the impact that the case may ultimately have. So many of the most memorable cases that I think I would work on would be essentially um, cases which in fact would start with clients who essentially don't have the resources to engage, because that's always a concern of mine. But there is, in fact, I recall the case of a lady who wanted to bury her daughter for more than, and I think I said I assisted on that matter. It's from far, far back. And even George Williams, I think. Let's start with George Williams. So George Williams, who was in custody at for more than 50 years, I believe, at the time, when he was at he has a mental illness. He's in custody, and we're trying to discuss how best it is that we could have him release his family who wanted him out. He has not been convicted of a crime, but he's in custody for 50 years awaiting trial. And a very egregious case. And in relation to that particular case, the habeas corpus to get him out, drafted the documents. That was one of the cases that I worked on pro bono, which I thought was most significant because it opened my eye essentially to the hundreds of other citizens who were in custody simply awaiting their date because they have a mental illness. And by virtue of some gap in our law, they are just there essentially waiting to be found fit to plead, to have their matter determined. And I found that to be one, very offensive, and two, assisting in that particular matter would have opened my eye to an issue that is in fact one of the central issues that we're still working on, to see how it is that we can bring justice to that area of law, and to have that particular those legal provisions that empower that to occur, have those provisions declared unconstitutional and have that become a thing of the past. And as related to another family member, and that is the UA case, where the young lady, the mother was waiting on her dead body, her child's dead body, to receive the body so she could bury her daughter, and we had to bring a matter before the court, so to order UA to have that child released to the mother. And those particular cases touched me because they show that somehow the justice system provided a mechanism, one, for George Williams to smell free air after 50 years of being incarcerated, and two, for a woman to get her dead child's body buried, and in fact having to resort to the court system to achieve that. But as we go back to the pro bono argument, one of the key issues that concern me about pro bono is that essentially when we have a pro bono system, sometimes the lawyers who do the pro bono work have to essentially fund many aspects of things that is outside of legal work, including playing fair, including different things that poor people cannot afford. And that is one of the reasons why I say we cannot build a justice system dependent heavily on pro bono, especially when it comes to access to our highest court.
Isaac?
Yeah, so let me try and speak like a lawyer. So in terms of pro bono, I don't call it pro bono, nor do I call it legal aid, because I don't do legal aid. I never will do legal aid, and I won't sign up for legal aid, because I have a criticism about that. Everything, there's a way to trump the system, and I don't like when people take advantage of systems. But what I would say, there's a particular pet peeve. So when I was 17, I was charged for a drug offense in Jamaica. And here it is years later. I'm going into the courts and representing young people who are charged, and some of the ways they're charged, Lexi can tell you. They charge them and they don't have the benefit of legal aid. So the court, they put you before the court on an allegation and say, forget about the presumption of innocence. You're going to have to find the money because obviously they're saying you are a drug dealer, so you must have the money to get yourself out of the situation. So lo and behold, I don't really talk about this, but I'm in the court fighting the exact type of matter and doing it for free because they don't have the money. And it was one of the biggest words last year when I was suspended was I had files from the floor to the ceiling with these type of matters where they never had money. And these persons were scampering to find money or remain unrepresented. And you can ask Alexandra, when after Miss Nita and Mr. Clark assisted me with my stay, these people came back because they were going to court without representation the whole time. Nobody's not assisting them, and it's left that way. And those are things in the law that I think that needs to change. And if we have the system right, we are talking about the Privy Council, but we have to look at connectivity. Miss Nita, who has been in this system, she's in a position to make the critique. If the judges are doing the work from first instance, you won't have to be even contemplating the final court. So we should be having conversations about getting justice the correct way or the right way. And as I say that, it might be sounding a bit controversial, but I envision a justice system when a particular court makes a certain ruling, you as a lawyer will be constrained to tell your client that I'm hard pressed to say we're going to go to the next level because this is what the law looks like. And it will be a matter for you if you want to spend your money to go to the court to try some magical, magic. So if we get the justice system right and working right here in Jamaica, we won't have to be worried about whether it's in the Caribbean or it's in England or anything like that. And so for me, I can't repeat all of the pro bono work because, to be honest with you, everything I do is stamped with John Clark, Alexandra Labiche, Miss Nita, Miss Carolyn Reed Cameron. I'm calling them Mr. Bert Samuels. These are attorneys that they fight till they like Miss Nita. You see her face, she's laughing because she's like, I did 30 years of that. So go on, go kill up yourself. Yeah, and she's laughing. And the same thing with Bert. He'll be like, yeah, man, you go on out there, go get your punches because we did it already. So the more things change, the more they remain the same. But in terms of what I can tell you, even before we're thinking about the Privy Council, these people don't have no money and their rights are violated from day one. It is complete passion and the amount of free work that collectively right here that we put. Sometimes I'm offended when I'm at the stoplights and people are begging me $1. And I'm like, hold on, me have your court case, 30 other million court case. My copies are done. John no want buy back the ink. Lexi no want buy a new printer. Miss Nita said, come out of the office, your AC are blow too loud. All of these things and people begging you money and then saying you're rich. When majority of the cases that you do, you have to help Jamaican people because the people who are prosecuted are the poor people. This is a fact.
Anyway,
I digress.
Let me just say that Isaac, you mentioned the name Bert Samuels. Bert Samuels and I would go a long way back. He was my Meadowbrook, right? And we used to call him Balahula. Let me share the secret. So Balahula, if you listen to me, big yourself. Now, Miss Nita, I just hope that believe me, I'm torn when you tell me say you're gonna retire. I'm hoping that you'll take a position that Bert Samuels has taken, which is like semi-retirement. Not every day in court supervising young attorneys, and I'm just hoping for the sake of Jamaica and these young attorneys, these impressionable people, that you will just do something like that, and still you're forced to reckon with the legal profession. Now,
Well,
here's what I say.
let me tell you this.
Go ahead.
Always available to counsel. Always, always. Bottom line.
Now,
And,
go ahead.
even
No,
though
go ahead.
I retire, I plan to do some things along the line we have been talking about to try to make the system much better.
Yeah, you and John. Right. Now listen, here's something that I want to bring. What I've heard from Alessandra, you, John, and Isaac qualifies under the Magnitsky Act. The Magnitsky Act is an American law that says that if your government is involved in kleptocracy, corruption, or human rights abuse, that the ones responsible, government officials, that the US government will examine the case, and if they see it fit, they will take away visas. And that's just a start. We at the One Jamaica Legal Defense Foundation, we are initiating an initiative to approach our lawmakers in the US to address this issue in Jamaica. You have the cases, we have the initiative. I'm hopeful that at some point soon we can get together and we can start discussing the cases, because John mentioned somebody was in prison for 50 years. Alessandra mentioned something about her father. Isati and I, we talk constantly about these cases. And Valerie, I would love to work with you. You said you want to work with John regarding children's homes and all of that. I'm hoping that you will consider this as a project, a pet project. And let me just, enough about that. We'll get back to that some other time. But here is something that's in the chat. Everybody is asking about the DPP. Various questions from all different angles. I won't ask any questions. I will just ask you, what is your impression of the situation? How do we go forward? Let me start with you, Casey, before we get in trouble with Isaac.
I was just going to say, don't let Isaac answer that question.
Oh, you see the producer, Kevin. Don't play with me, Kevin. Please to move me out the big box.
All right, this is my view.
Kevin, what you do?
This is my honest view. Miss Lurleen has served, what is it? How many years? Isaac, how many years has she done?
She's done about 18 years as DPP, 17, 18 years.
Yes, okay. The DPP is a very powerful individual because of the Constitution. The Constitution. We need to address that issue, not only now when we have certain problems or what we perceive as problems with individuals. We need to ensure that the DPP is not as powerful as this Constitution makes them. That's the first thing. And we need to have term limits. Okay, we can't lose with those two. We cannot lose with those two. There is nothing in place to challenge the DPP's ruling on any issue. Nothing in place. And as a servant of the people, I believe that there needs to be safeguards, because as in most things, the persons who are serving are not perfect, and we don't know what they will do and what they won't do. And that is why we have to have safeguards. So when they step out of line, we can pull them back in line. That's my view.
But let me leave Isaac. Let me leave Isaac. Thanks, Kevin. Leave Isaac out of this for a second. John, Any impressions about what's going on with this DPP situation? We're hearing all kinds of things. We're here. In fact, I got involved. I must, full disclosure. Let me tell you how I got involved. I got involved because um, I felt that the Jamaican public, many of whom are my relatives, that they shouldn't be paying for two DPPs. Shouldn't be paying the salary for two DPPs. We have an acting DPP, Miss Thompson, and we have a DPP that was told to stay home or go home by the court. But she's being paid the salary because it's on appeal. And I was asking about that, and I really couldn't get an answer. Furthermore, I recently filed with the GLC asking for them to examine her behavior in the Vibes Cartel case when she when she when she advised the judge that he should move forward with the trial, despite the fact that there were allegations of jury tampering. In light also of the Manley versus Gleaner case, and in light of her statement made on the nationwide radio that this is something that she had participated in several times. So I have a pending application with the GLC for disciplinary action against her. So that's full disclosure. So let me ask you now, John, your impression of what's going on.
Well, Madam DPP, you hear me?
Yes, I'm hearing it.
Yes, was became DPP in 2008, and if one looks on the website, she's still DPP despite a court order saying otherwise. But in any event, she has been DPP for 16 years, and one there has been a lot of questions asked in relation to what has been achieved in those 16 years and what more is left to be achieved that she couldn't have achieved in the 16 years that passed before. So one looks forward to see what our Court of Appeal will say in relation to the appeal. But I know that she's a very skilled lady, and one would have thought that after being in the office for 16 years, which is the longest serving DPP in Jamaica's history, no other DPP has done the amount of time that she has done in that particular office. One wonders why it is that she's been put through the indignity of having to fight to hold on a little bit longer to do what I don't know. Because she has served the country for a very long time. And as such, I think it would have been nice if she could move on to either her retirement or to do something else. Because and just by history, the other longer serving DPP would have been a DPP who had spent 11 years. So she is the longest serving DPP by some record. And that DPP who served 11 years became a judge of the Court of Appeal. So one wonders whether or not they're doing a disservice to this great Jamaican woman to asking her after 16 years to still continue the office for what purposes? Is there nobody else in the office who is skilled enough to take over that role? Or is it that Jamaica is totally inept at even attracting somebody else outside of her office to carry on the role of DPP? But that is left to be determined. And what I am most disheartened by is the fact that you actually have her in court having to fight this little issue about staying on for a little more 2 years. And I saw a video going around where somebody said that somebody resembling her was in the stadium asking for peanuts. And I'm hoping that 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 video is not utilized to say that she's just begging for a little bit more time in office as well.
I start reported that from information you received from credible sources, aka spies. Alexander, give us your take on what's going on, please.
All I would wish to see is just a prosecutorial department that believes that their duty is not just to win. I hope that we will always remember that it's not just to win, but to do justice in each case that is put before them. That is my only take on the DPP's office, and that is not directed at any particular person or any particular post. It is something I want to see from the very first instance when the matter goes before the court, all the way up to when it is eventually decided that they are motivated by justice and not scores in terms of who wins and who loses. Sorry.
Isaac, do you want to comment on this or just leave it alone? Because I know that
No. So unfortunately, I had a client who would pay my legal fees in relation to this, and I don't think that Miss Nita or Mr. Clark would give me good graces to catch another case in 2024. What I will say though is when John said allegedly, I would never believe in 2024 that Madam DPP would be begging nuts anywhere. So I know that it's an AI video, because in all her grace and her distinguishedness and her erudite existence in the Jamaican space, no DPP would be caught begging for nuts in public. So I know it's an AI video, and even though it's funny and all of that, I know Madam DPP was not there and was not begging any man nuts, peanuts.
Okay, all right.
Full marks. Full marks.
Yeah, right, thank you. No, yeah, put it in context.
Full marks. I give you full marks.
All right. No, I want Prez to get involved in this, but before one thing before Prez gets one question for the entire panel. Like any profession, you're gonna stumble. You're gonna have impediments in the way. You're gonna have obstacles. Tell us about a time where you faced that and you seriously considered about leaving the legal profession or not joining the legal profession. Let me start with Alessandra. Come see she smile while you so like say, something happening in our life. So Alessandra, talk to us.
Well, I would have indicated the situation with my father. The other time I felt like that strongly about the legal profession was actually in the recent retrial hearing. I told Mr. Buchanan, I would have also told my client that, listen, if it is that I ever feel that I am practicing and I know that the law supports me on a point, that I am right about it, grounded in law, and a court decides otherwise, I might as well go and flip burgers or clean somewhere for a living. It wouldn't make sense for me to put on my clothes and go to court if the system would continue to fail persons and it not be justified and grounded in what the law is. So yes, that is two instances where I've felt very, very strongly and passionately. I told ISAT if the court had decided otherwise in this retrial issue, I would seriously consider whether or not I wanted to continue doing what I have been doing. It wouldn't make any sense to me because I know that we were right on this point and that our position was firmly grounded in the law.
John?
Well, I've never at one point sort of leaving the profession, and I tell you why. When I get judgments that are not in my favor, that is almost like a fuel to go, and the same night prepared the ground of appeal to file the next day, because I'm of the view that yes, decisions will be made by judges, which I may not agree with, but we do have the options to appeal, and that sometimes fuel me to continue because ultimately I know that mistakes will be made by both myself and by judges, and I look forward to seeing how the highest courts possibly deal with that issue, and that is one of the reasons to why it can hurt me and cause me great concern when it is that some persons may not be able to access the highest court because they may be in a situation that I know too well, which is they don't have the money to do what they need to do. And I think everybody should have the resources to ensure that our judges are kept in check when they need to be. Because there's sometimes as lawyers who, when they find the view or form the view that decisions are made because there's no option to appeal it to the highest court. And in those circumstances, one would want to ensure that is preserved. Because even with the retrial aspect, Lexi, we had researched and we had prepared, if needs be, to carry it to the Privy Council because we found precedent where that could be brought to the Privy Council if we're not happy with the decision of the court on that point. So I to answer your question, I pointed it, I think I've never thought of a case where I wanted to leave the profession because I started in the profession to fight systemic issues And I know that the system is not going to fall over and form dead. And eventually it's going to take a long time to achieve many of the things that I want to see achieved. And in many cases, I don't try to achieve it only through the court. But even when we don't succeed in the court, we lobby Parliament and lobby elsewhere to have it addressed.
Well, you have a long time ahead of you, so
Yes.
Definitely.
yeah. Casey, talk to us.
No,
Yeah.
never had that experience. Never
Come
will.
on, Casey. You must know,
No,
man.
never, ever have I
You
had
understand,
that
John,
experience.
because John is a youngster now. John is 17. But you know, man, with your 30-something years, 50-something years, or whatever the number of years, you must
Yes.
have at one time where you say, boy, you know what? I prefer, like Alessandro, you say, boy, I prefer me go flip burgers than deal with them people because this system is just corrupt. We can't deal with it.
No, no, I know the system is corrupt. I know where the faults are. I either agree with a judge or I don't agree. And if I don't agree, I know what to do. I don't take it personal, and I will fight to the bitter end. I think I'm known for that.
Yes.
I will fight for the bitter end, and I never give up, ever.
Never.
Now I'm looking at some solutions to help the younger lawyers coming up to be able to see the light at the end of the tunnel. I'm looking for solutions, whether it be political or an organization that will, as John is saying, provide funds for those who can't afford to access justice.
Mhm.
But I will be doing something in relation to law. I know that because
Teach.
my son. No, I don't like teaching, but my sons always say, I have 4 sons, and my sons always say on my tombstone, they will write, "Here lies my mother. Her first love was the law."
Oh.
Them not factor themselves in, and I love them.
But this, hold on, that's where Isaac get the code from.
Yeah.
That's where get it from. Isaac.
No, I've never. And the harder the fight, is the harder digging on me fight.
Good. Isaac.
Yes.
Talk to us about the a moment where you said to yourself, "This isn't worth it. I should be doing something."
Boy, every morning I get up, I have to check if them want kick me out faster than me can ever want to leave. So I don't get a chance. I don't get a chance to wonder if I would want to leave because there's a constant. Every day I wake up, you can ask them. I have to complain to Miss Nita. I have to complain to John. I complain to Lexi every morning I get up. So I have a constant fight of them trying to let me leave rather than me contemplating to leave. So
All
though
right.
there might have been moments, but I don't get the opportunity. If I say, boy, I feel like I want to leave, I have to say no and fight. So I don't know.
Good. Let me leave that line of questioning there. I turn to Prezi because we're running out of time. And in advance, I want to thank all of you for making the time to be with us today. Very informative, very dynamic. I love it. Love it to death. Prezi.
Yes, the producer is giving us a 10 minutes wrap up signal. So we're like, what? But anyways, so I had two questions. Yeah, man. So I had two questions, and I said I'm gonna start with you. How do you rebound from the emotional trauma whenever you lose a case? That's question one, and we could have delved into that a little deeper. And the other one is, what's your goal now that you're a famous attorney with mentoring new and young people entering the legal profession?
All right, so let me tell you, how do I deal with the emotional trauma? I'm a really emotional guy, but I always have I put it in this order. I have John Clark who said, "Don't worry, we will appeal," and then the strong. But if my back broad is because this lion represents Valerie Nita Robinson behind because she goes to the media and she says, "We will appeal." And when they say that, I know problems for them. So I believe in my lawyers. I do believe in them. And I have a support system, family, my father, my mother, my brothers, sisters. Listen, my whole family, the love I get from my family I can drown out the noise. And my extended legal family, there are people, and she's not here, and not because John and Miss Nita Robinson, but Miss Carolyn Reed Cameron, the public defender. I must tell you this: there's enough people there that protects me, that and shelters me, that I know I'm okay. I really feel that way. And John, when I get really hysterical, John said, wait, no man. And he starts to draft documents, and then I read it and say, oh, this sound bright. And then, and so I'm good right there. So for me, the hurt, especially when it comes to losing, is knowing you're right. To piggyback off what Lexi says, you know you're right. And there in 2024, there's a court of public opinions where sometimes you have to sit and say, did my client lose because the public hates me? Did my client lose because this is an opportunity to discredit? And the thing about the famous lawyer thing, I'm so humble and grounded in humility that doesn't get to my head. I'll go in court and win, but want to run home to do context matters, or if it's something, I'll be doing an ID parade and telling them, "Oh, you need to hurry it up because I'm not going to be late for the Rattigan show," or whatever. Anywhere else I am. So I live my life. I do the law. I'm happy to be an attorney because I love the law. And when I die, they will say, "Here lies Isaac Buchanan, whose first love was the law." Yeah. And then they'll mix up the tombstones between us. So if we're very close, it's problems. I might get all your flowers then. But so for those reasons, I just think, and the young lawyers, I'm sure they'll adopt this in terms of mentoring, is we live in a different world. We love TikTok. We want to say tap up the screen. We want to enjoy carnival. We want to enjoy our lives, dance hall. We want to be a part of the world. And to us, law, as much as we love it and respect it, we love the law for the law, and not the procedural and practice that comes with the formalities, because the success is for the client, and the service is for the clients. Certain for me, I don't put opulence and stuff like that. So if there is this thing about famous attorney, I'm still ISAT, and I want people to approach me and love me for that, because I can only be me.
Well, you know you're well loved.
So send me some KFC. I did leave out that part. Barbecue chicken.
Well, you don't want the KFC from by the way. You don't want the
let me say this though. In the past, in my era, sound old, don't it? In my era, judges were much more kind to young counsel. They were hard. They were harsh with the more senior counsel, but with young counsel, and they spent their time teaching and correcting. I believe that's why I never really fell afoul of any serious grievances. But remember now, some of our best have been cited for contempt by judges, and some have been convicted for contempt. But all of that goes with the landscape, yeah. So for the young lawyers like ISAT, don't worry about it. All you do is try to be polite. You can be critical, but still polite.
All right. Well, I tell you what, we're almost out of time, so I'm gonna go around and have each of you just make a statement. I won't say closing statement because I don't think anything is closed here. I think you'll be back in due course. Let me start with Alessandra. Alessandra, you're on the floor.
Well, it's just as my shirt says, it's a mantra I believe in. Always God and time. You put God first and everything will be okay. And to all the young attorneys out there, dream, strive, believe, and find yourself great mentors, as I have found in John Clark and Isaac Buchanan. And you will be okay. And let no one dim your light and confine you to any space or any box. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. And well, before I make that I was going to make a comment too, but it actually should be directed to the entire panel. So let me just go to John and then I'll make a comment after. John.
Yes, I thank you very much for the invite to be on this program. I enjoyed the discussion with all my colleagues and enjoy the questions asked. And one of the final thing I must say is that every single day, each of us on the program, we strive for what we think is justice. But I think all of us invariably adopt the mantra that injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. So we try in our work to minimize injustices being done to our clients and to the wider public because we fully appreciate that one day, if we fail to do our work, that same injustice may be visited upon ourselves, our family, our friends, and those we love the most. And invariably, when we look at many of the issues, especially the issues of the CCG, is an issue close to my heart. One of the questions we ask ourselves is, in all my iteration as a person, would I be able to access this particular issue? And if I can't, then that may lead to injustice to me and injustice to other Jamaicans. And as we say, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. And one's inability to access our highest court, I think, is the greatest injustice we can visit on any Jamaican. So I look forward to hearing more about this as we discuss the way forward on those issues.
Thank you. I said, because we have to, I said, straighten me out and let me know that the KC is senior here, and so the KC must go either first or last. So, when Steve are for last, you go ahead, sir. But by
KC close the dance. Okay, I'm glad you know.
making
But
a
I,
state. Go
so
ahead.
my final thought is this: I'm gonna have to have a conversation with Mr. Clark and Miss Valerie Robinson as to whether or not I should sue Miss Beach for the mantra "God on time" on a T-shirt, because
So,
copyright infringement and trademark, um, infringements might be here, and that's the beauty of the law. Sometimes you have to just sue your friends. So watch it, right? Because we have to have these deep conversations because this God on time about our mantra on shirt and me and John don't get none. We have issues.
Yes.
I love it, and I always love to be on this show. So thanks for including me and allow me to be for the world to see the company of greatness that has mentored me and shielded me from the harshness that I've personally experienced. I speak as an ordinary citizen who gets to engage and put my life in people you're seeing on this screen, and it's a beautiful experience, including yourself, Mr. Rattigan. My issues in foreign, you is my lawyer. So all my lawyers are here. So if we think of the big and bad, come touch a button now.
KC.
Well, I adopt the mantra. It isn't mine. I think it belongs to the late Mr. Justice Wool, Chief Justice Wool. There can be no peace without justice. And so I encourage all the young lawyers to remember that they are the buffer between the courts and the clients. So their duties are tremendous and you mustn't give up. But what I would encourage you to do is to not be afraid, um, be always prepared for court, and you can get assistance from senior counsel. But don't be afraid to ask, um, so that you do a better job than you think you are doing, and you can get help. Help is available, and together we can only together make the system better.
All right. Thank you. Prizzy, give us some closing
Yeah,
remarks, sir. This
yeah,
outstanding.
absolutely. So this has been, I would say, uh, one of the best discussions for our viewers because I see a lot of great comments and having all these collective years of legal minds presented here and talking about the Jamaican Constitution, about the legal system is really, really amazing. So thank you, Valerie. Thank you, Lexi. Thank you, Isaac and John. You guys are amazing. And, I do believe that our best days are yet ahead of us. I do believe that with Lexi, John, and Isaac, coming up as the future attorney and the mentorship of Valerie, Jamaica will indeed be the right place. I know we still have some nuances in terms of how we'll navigate the issue of a republic and whether we're going to go to the CCJ or we're going to keep with the Privy Council. Those things certainly, that discussion certainly must be had. But what I really want to say that in my experience as former law enforcement, I do believe in the process of law. I do believe that law really works and it matters. And just having a good attorney on your side can help you a lot of times. So if you're watching and you need more information, if you're dealing with a legal case or you're struggling with understanding anything within the Constitution or a law, please reach out to these attorneys. They are available to assist in many different ways. Even though they're here offering this public service, they do run a business, and we do no foreign pro bono. If you're in the diaspora, no pro bono work for you. Just keep that in mind. All right. So those in the diaspora, get the cha-ching ready and take care of these amazing guys. So again, wonderful discussion. You guys are phenomenal, and big up on yourself. And that's all I have to say regarding that. Got on time.
I know. Mr. Rattigan, before they go, there's a challenge that's going on, and Prezi just started. I don't know how it works, but I'm going to try it. They said the diaspora have enough money, so we have to beg for it. Just give me my money. Yeah, I'm not supposed. All right, let me stop. But you don't even know the challenge.
Let me just say,
all right.
it's a pleasure seeing you again. And I tell you, you have to give me that potion, that elixir, whatever it is that you're using, because every time I see you look younger and younger. You said it was a revelation a while ago. You said that you have 4 sons. I couldn't believe it. You look like you're ready to have the first one, but be that as
I adopt those 2 you have there. I adopt them.
All right. Alessandra, it's a pleasure meeting you. I've heard so many wonderful things about you, and it's my pleasure.
Thank you, and it was a pleasure of you hosting us, and it's been great as a young attorney to be in the company of such great counsel.
Yeah, and John, it was great seeing you. Yeah,
and thanks. We're looking forward to being here again.
And like I said to people before, I won't name them, but 2 out of the 4 attorneys you're looking on the screen, they represent the One Jamaica Legal Defense Foundation and some significant cases. And you will hear about them in the future. I'm really confident victory will be ours. So, folks, until we meet again, take care, be well. We'll talk to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And ladies and gentlemen, those of you who are watching, please hit the like button. You need to hit the like button, hit the share button. We are hoping that we can increase the amount of likes that the algorithm is getting. So when you don't hit the like button, it affects the broadcast. So please go ahead, hit the like button, hit the share button, so that our stream can continue to grow and other people will listen. But the program is just getting warm. Will.
Yes. Isaac, I don't know where you're going, but you need to forward. All right. I mean, if you take a break, then